You know I'm right. Nick Durst here with Joe Calabrese and Joe as two New Yorkers who are big sports fans and also WWE fans. I think we got the perfect guest here today for our audience.
Yes, perfect guest. From what I understand, he is a credible and entertaining free agent news anchor, but that's not entirely true because he's still working. He's going to tell us about that.
Is that what it says about me? Is that what it says?
Hold on, you got to let me finish. He's a sports anchor. He's a quiz master. He's an interviewer. He's a studio host, a 7-time Emmy Award winner, and he's an all-around terrific guy. I don't know. We'll figure that out in a minute. But if you want to read up on his LinkedIn, go right ahead. But we're going to welcome on Scott Stanford to the show. Really, really excited about him. So, Scott, welcome. How you doing? What's going on?
Fellas, I'm good. I understand this is where you guys needed me to come sing some show tunes today. What's the story? Les Mis? What are we doing? West Side Story? What kind of show is this?
Yeah, we wanted you to maybe do some R-Truth freestyle rapping.
You could get with this, or you can get with that. You can get with this, or you can get with that.
Scott, you finally played a doctor on TV. What was that like for you?
Fellas, I've been waiting all my life to play a doctor on TV, and I did it, I think, for literally 15 seconds of some blood pressure, sugar, cholesterol medication. Thank God it said on the screen, this is not a real doctor. And it was great. Took me about 20 minutes to figure out the lines. And this is why I didn't go to medical school, because I would have failed instantly.
So obviously no medical school, but an accomplished 7-time Emmy Award winner. And currently having a good time, you and Suki doing the Suki and Scott show. How's that experience been like for you? Started that a little before quarantine and just been cranking out the episodes.
I'll tell you what, we got 120 episodes in the can, and it really snowballed into a show that, we're really just focusing on right now. We started at the beginning of the quarantine. We were doing it 5 nights a week. And now we just, between, all the celebrities and the entertainers, the thing just snowballed into a show that we couldn't stop doing. So like I said, we have about 120 shows in. They're about an hour and a half each. And we've had on, some of the biggest celebrities. And, I love having on, magicians and singers and illusionists. And we really just started doing it to give people something to watch other than all the crappy news at night. And now we have this massive audience around the country. And it just continues to grow every week. And now we're talking to sponsors and different cable networks and streaming platforms. And 2021 is going to be a good year for the Suki and Scott show. And oddly enough, it was really the pandemic that helped us get to where it needed to be, because it was, we weren't able to do it every night of the week because we couldn't get together every day in a studio. So we're able to do it from our homes, and it's so much easier to get celebrities and entertainers on because they're also in their homes and no one has to leave. So it all came together. And, regardless of what happens with all the bad news out there and the pandemic and Corona, we're going to keep the show going, and hopefully we'll get into a studio, turn it into we'll get out of these boxes and turn it into a real TV show one of these days. But it's been phenomenal. It's been great. We love it.
Yeah, we hear that. Same thing for us. Started this during the pandemic, and we've been able to get people on because everyone's home. So
that's it.
Certainly helped out. So we want to walk our listeners here through your accomplished career. Again, 7-time Emmy winner. When did you, know you wanted to go into?
It should have been 8, by the way. Rob 1 year.
I think you need a Slammy award too. You never won a Slammy award.
You've never won a Sammy award, though.
I've never won a Slammy award. You believe that, fellas?
I think you should have won a Slammy for Long Island IZ. I mean, that was some of your finest stuff.
Of course I should have won for that, especially when I revealed myself, as the bad guy.
Scott, that was one of the best shows I ever seen. That was an amazing show. You and Zach Ryder. Yeah. Awesome storytelling, and that really launched the WWE YouTube into the next stratosphere with all the followers it has now.
It really did. I'll tell you, man, we had so much fun shooting that thing. I would do my WWE superstars before Raw. and SmackDown on Monday and Tuesday nights. And, by the time Raw kicked off, we'd be in the back shooting some fun stuff and commercials for, bro nuts and broski in a bottle and all this fun stuff, man. We used to just go back, with Ziggler and Johnny Morrison and all those guys. And we would we would laugh our butts off just shooting on his phone. And then Zach would go home during the week and put it together. Excuse me. And it would just be, you would see 200, 300,000 people a week tuning in to the Z True Long Island story. And it was just a lot of fun nonsense that turned into something great. And, turned him into a bigger star than he was.
Absolutely.
And it was so much fun.
Yeah. Nick and I attended Survivor Series in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And
who cares about The Rock?
One of the more, I honestly, sincerely think one of the more impressive things I've ever seen at a live WWE event, at a pay-per-view, no less, at a major 4 pay-per-view, no less, is the main event was The Rock and John Cena against the Awesome Truth. And kudos, because they had an awesome match and The Rock looked great that night. But everybody's chanting for We Want Ryder in the main event. And this goes into after the show ends, and they had to say something after the show because the crowd was chanting for Ryder, and you were a part of that. You were a huge part of that.
Yeah, no, we had a ball. I remember, every week on the road, before Raw, you'd have the dark matches, and the people coming into the arenas they would scream out, "Woo!" That's all you'd hear, Ric Flair, and We Want Ryder chants, and it was wild, man. It was really wild.
Yeah, the rider signs, everyone had them. They wanted to be on the show. So
yeah.
Just,
it was amazing. It was amazing. But
the king of social media back then, really revolutionary. I mean, you talk about all these great people who have brought technology forward. You got Bill Gates, you got Steve Jobs, and then you got Zack Ryder, who absolutely changed the course of social media and digital media for WWE.
Right. So funny.
So we all enjoyed that show. And of course, we're going to get to your WWE work as well. But we want to take it back here to either your childhood or maybe in the 80s when you are at college. When did you know you wanted to pursue a path in broadcasting?
You know what, man? Ever since I was a little kid, I ran around the house with a microphone in my hand, just, pretending I was Bob Barker from Price is Right. So, I don't know if there was anywhere else I knew I was going to be, but it was always really in broadcasting. And then once I found WWF at the time, Mean Gene Okerlund was the guy I wanted to be. And I have all these old tapes of me with, my long hair, and my brother got his first video camera. And, I'm interviewing him, he's pretending to be a wrestler, and all right, Mean Gene, this Monday night, Madison Square Garden, Ted DiBiase, and I'm doing Mean Gene. And I basically, I knew I wanted to be a broadcaster my whole life. I didn't know what it would be. I still don't know what it's going to be. It'll be something soon. Whether it's a sports guy, a host, Ryan Seacrest type, just doing a little of everything. I always knew that's where I wanted to be. Even in college, I was the radio guy. I was the TV guy. Steve Levy and I, Steve from ESPN for Monday Night Football now. Steve Levy and I went to Oswego together. We were both on the radio together. We were both on the TV station together, just, having a blast, laughing our butts off. And we just, that was always where I knew I wanted to be. And regardless of what anybody told me, that's really, I want you to be a doctor, a lawyer. I should have listened now, probably in hindsight. I should have been a lawyer or a doctor. But this is, when I go to work, nothing else matters when I'm doing stuff in front of the camera. I don't think about my mortgage, my bills, anything else. It all goes away, once you're sitting there in the studio in front of the camera. So ever since I'm a kid, that's where I needed to be.
Yeah, so you went to Oswego with Steve Levy, and he's somebody that Nick and I we're trying to get on the show too very, very soon. So hopefully we could do that. It'd be absolutely amazing, especially with what we did this year with Monday Night Football.
I could probably help you out with Levy.
Good man, Scott. Thank you. Much appreciated. I wasn't expecting that, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, he's not as important as he thinks he is. You can get him on.
Yeah, he's going to be done after tonight with Monday Night Football,
really.
with the end of the season.
So you went to Oswego. Nick went to St. John's. I went to Marist. So obviously, we all have that New York connection. Kind of internships did you do in college? What did you also do in college that helped you transition into that world of broadcasting?
Well, I did, like I said, I did. I always tell the young kids, I said, listen, if you want to be in broadcasting when you're in college, be on the radio station, be on the TV station, do show anything you could do that has you in front of people or a camera or a microphone doing things. Just do it, because the more you do it, the more comfortable you are doing it when you get out into the real world. Here's the funny thing about me. When I was my last semester in Oswego, I had an internship set up at the David Letterman show.
Wow.
And I ended up changing it to go work for this place called Katz Radio Group Sports, which was sports broadcasting, advertising, sales in the city. And I ended up in that part of the business for, in my earlier 21, 22, 23 years old, selling sports broadcasting for like the New Jersey Devils and the Yankees, all those signs you see on the ice at the arena. I was selling those for the New Jersey Devils as a young kid, making some really good money, wearing suits every day, sales meetings, pitching people. But again, it was never where I wanted to be. So I gave up a job where I was making about $150,000 a year at 22 years old. I let my apartment run out. I moved home with my parents. I got a gig on the radio station in Rockland County for $200 a week, and went back and started to work myself up, in that respect, from station to station. So, regardless of how much money you make, listen, if you're not happy doing what you're doing, you're not going to enjoy going to work. So I put in the time, I put in the effort, and I said, this is what, and it's funny because I always say to my wife, I say, boy, if I would have stayed in sales, because there were guys who I was in sales with who are now like presidents and general managers of broadcasting companies, TV and radio stations. I said, I wonder if I would have stayed in sales long enough, I could have been a president and GM of a TV station, then I could just put myself on all day.
Right.
And it would have worked out beautifully. But yeah, it's going from college into the broadcasting world. It's just a matter of meeting people, internships. When you go into internships, you're not doing a lot. You're not going to learn all that much. It's just about meeting people and finding those people who can help you out and move from place to place. But when it comes to college, yeah, just, if you want to be in broadcasting, it's all about the practice and getting involved in as many things as you can,
Yeah, no doubt about it. And networking is the name of the game for the most part. So curious to hear, you get your big break with CBS Radio as a sports anchor in 2001. How did that opportunity come about for you?
It's funny because I was doing working for like Shadow and Metro Traffic and doing traffic reports for stations. And I started my own production company with my brother as a youngster. And I got a call from a buddy of mine who said, hey, man, CBS 880 is looking for an afternoon sports guy. You want to send in a tape? So not needing the, you always get a job when you don't need it. When you're not desperate for it, that's when you always get it. I sent in a tape, a demo tape that was all shtick of me doing sports on the radio, singing, movie clips, blah, 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 blah. Everything but the actual scores of the games. And the funny thing is, I got a call from my buddy. He said, hey, man, they listened to 32 tapes. They were on cassettes back then. They listened to 32 tapes. You're the only guy he wants to see. And that's because I didn't care if I got the gig at the time. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to send in a sports cast. Mets beat the Brewers today, 5-1. Yeah, blah, blah. I did a really funny cast where I did some fun things. And that set me apart from everybody else. And I ended up at CBS 880, which led me to the TV world. Because once you're on in New York, now you have people who are executives who are listening to you on the radio.
Right.
Led me to, Channel 9 / Fox 5 at the time, which got me to Channel 9, which ended up getting me to WWE. And, it all just kind of blended in together and things just happen. Once it's easier to get a job when you're on the air than if you're off the air. So it's because once you're off it's out of sight, out of mind. Well, I'm getting a lot of sun in over here, huh? It's a nice day. But you got to just, you're out of sight, out of mind. And it was just a matter of, doing that, the steps they tell you. Most people had to go out of town to get their broadcasting experience. I was lucky enough to stay right in the New York area and got my experience on little stations outside of the city, which got me into the city. And boom, boom, boom.
Right.
When I was at Channel 9, Friday Night SmackDown came to UPN. I know you're going to ask me that next. How'd you get into WWE? 11 years ago, Friday Night SmackDown came to the UPN network. Channel 9 was UPN here in New York.
Yep.
I was the sports guy. They needed somebody to do pieces every Friday night for the newscast that came on after wrestling. Okay, so during SmackDown, they could say, coming up on the 10 o'clock news, Hulk Hogan, blah, 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 blah. So they were trying to get that audience to stick around. I was the guy who was doing the WWE features for all the UPN 9 stations around the country. So it was almost like I was working for WWE. I would go to an event, I'd shoot like 20 different interviews and get everything in the can. And so when time came for them that they needed a studio host, it was the same type of thing. It was, hey man, Vince just looked at 30 different tapes. He hates everybody. We just remembered, you're doing all this stuff. I sent them a demo and Vince was like, get this guy in here. And that was basically it. So, it was almost like I was working with them already anyway. And it's been great. And one thing led to another. And I think, in my time there, I've done everything but ring announce for WWE, which funny enough, that was probably the one thing I wanted to do the most, is be the ring announcer. Because Howard Finkel was also one of my guys.
And nude.
Right. And he pulled the mic down from the ceiling. But it's been great, man. Just doing, listen, I've been there 11 years. I think I missed one day of work for food poisoning.
Wow.
It's phenomenal. Great place to work, fun, going on the road for many years and doing superstars and in the back. Eventually I'm too tall for some of the wrestlers to do interviews. So, they like the short people to do the interviews to make everybody look bigger. But it's been so much fun. I love it. And like I said, I'm one of those guys that I show up every day, smile on my face, do the work, do it like it's my first day. And, I've never missed. So it's been phenomenal. Really great.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, you mentioned CBS. You're a big deal there. You won the Air Award 2 years in a row, back-to-back champ for the best sports radio anchor in New York City. And that's saying a lot because you're going against, Bob Husler, John Minko, like all these big-time names.
Those
And
guys are hacks.
you blew them out of the water.
Yeah, Minko, Husler, those guys are hacks. Look at them throwing at me.
And then you go to UPN. I remember UPN, good times watching UPN growing up, especially SmackDown. So, you get to, I guess you get on the radar of Vince. You said that tape in. Any intimidation when you meet him for the first time?
Yeah, I was a little nervous. The audition process is fun. You go in, you do some stuff. I was with Joey Styles, if you remember Joey at the time.
Yep.
Joey was doing the auditions, and they have you just do a whole bunch of things, and then you go call a few matches, and you get that call, you got the gig, and it's like, wow, man, this is unbelievable. This is the greatest thing ever. Excuse me, but it's I remember the first time, I think I was doing studio work for about a year, and then all of a sudden I get a call. I'm at NBC at the time, and I get a call on a Saturday from WWE. Hey, can you get to Wichita, Kansas on Monday? I'm like, yeah, sure. For what? Wichita? I've never been there. Who the hell ever been to Wichita? So I fly into Wichita. I still don't know what I'm doing. It's about 4:00 in the afternoon, and I get a call back from Connecticut. The guy who was my boss says, "Put your tie on. You're calling Superstars tonight." I was like, "Holy shaving cream!" They give you no time to prepare. So I'm, okay, what are the matches? Who do we have tonight? Let's get some storylines going. Next thing you know, I'm sitting out ringside with Jerry the King Lawler, who I've been watching since I'm a kid. And Cole was doing it at the time, and they put me in instead of Cole. And for the next 2.5, 3 years, I was doing that, with Josh Matthews and Stryker. The famous couple of weeks with CM Punk, we had a great time together. That was some of the most fun I've had there, was just doing the play-by-play stuff with Punk, because, he was just ripping me the whole time, which was great. And then just, all the studio work, the Raw and SmackDown pre-shows with Booker and Corey and Otunga and King and Lita. All that stuff is just, it's true, man. When they say, when you love what you do, you don't have a day of work. There was nothing you could do to keep me. I was broken legs, funerals. Like I said, the only thing that kept me out of it was I couldn't get out of bed one night for food poisoning. I'm like, you guys know I'm sick if I can't get up to Connecticut to do this show. But it's been a lot of fun, man. And even just doing it now in my own home, for all the international shows and this week in WWE, I love doing it. So it's been great, and I'd love to be there another 11 years if they let me.
So someone that Joe and I both have worked with in the past at the NHL and MLB Network is Tony Bluffman. He was Tony Dawson in WWE, and another hack.
Another hack.
So he was telling me a story once that he was so caught off guard as to like he was a nobody, he says, basically, and he goes overseas to, I guess, the UK, and he had to have a security detail because the fans were that wild. What was your first experience like that when you were like, wow, I can't believe that I'm getting such notoriety here?
I used to show up at these, for Raw, like 3:00 in the afternoon, you'd get into the airport, you'd pull in, you have a car, go to the hotel before, and you'd pull, or the night before, or whatever it is, and you're getting your hotel keys, and you turn around, there's 50 people waiting for a picture and an autograph. And I'm like, you guys are looking for me? Oh, yeah. And they're pulling out a picture and signed it. And I used to call my wife. I'm like, you're never going to believe this. I just had 50 people shaking my hand, asking for pictures. She's like, yeah, okay, sure. But, the best place you'd see it was, at the WrestleManias. At the All Access at WrestleMania, when you hang out at the convention center, and just people, and especially me, I was on overseas mostly, the international, and still am in the international community, 70 countries. And I think, one time, I don't remember which WrestleMania it was, maybe Miami, WrestleMania 28, something around there. I had all these people coming up to me from Australia. They mobbed me as I'm walking through the convention center. And I'm like, wait, they had the accents. I'm like, wait, you guys from Australia? They're like, yeah. I'm like, am I on a lot in Australia? They're like, dude, you got your own channel in Australia. So, because everything we did was running there, and it's so funny, man. But it's very surreal to have that happen, because being on the news and doing sports here in New York, people will recognize you from shows, but if they're not like, hey, you're the guy from Pix 11 or whatever it is. The wrestling fans are insane. They're insane. Even when we do signings. And people, I still feel awful. Like people are being charged for my autograph and my picture. I'm like, who the hell am I to be? Yeah, and I'm not charging them. It's the promoters. But I'm like, why are you paying for my picture and my autograph? It's very, very surreal to me. You know what I mean? It seems criminal. I'm like, dude, you want to take a picture? We'll take a picture. But they're pulling out all the encyclopedias from with the pictures in them from WWE, and I'm like, all right, there you go. But yeah, it's funny, yeah. But I probably got a lot less than Tony did because he was big, very big, Tony. No, I'm kidding. He's still a hack. I taught him everything he knows. Renee, I taught her everything she knows.
So Tony actually admitted that he didn't know much about wrestling, and he told a really funny story. I don't want to get anybody in trouble here, but he said he got in a bit of an argument because he questioned Michael Cole as to why he was supposed to call Shawn Michaels Mr. WrestleMania instead of The Undertaker. So that's Tony's wrestling knowledge there.
First of all, listen, you don't ever want to question anybody. That's rule number one. And HBK is Mr. WrestleMania. That's his nickname, dude. You gotta see. I told you he's a hack.
Yeah, I think so. I want to get into this specifically because you've bounced around the New York market. You worked for Fox 5. You worked for NBC. Pix 11 for a really, really, really long time.
Yep.
You did some post-game reporting for the Yankees. You did hosting and pregame duties for the Giants, right? Yep. So you have a really accomplished sense of how to broadcast in New York, the New York market, the New York teams. You understand the New York fans. What or what would you say are the biggest differences between the broadcasts that you did locally here, covering the teams that you did, the preparation that you did, the work that you did, the interviews that you did, and your time in WWE? Because I think WWE is a really entirely different animal on its own. And I think one of the reasons that it's like that is because of what you just said, wrestling fans. Wrestling fans are just an entirely different breed of crazy, psychopathic, sociopathic, however you want to describe them.
Absolutely.
No, it's just a totally different breed. So what were the biggest differences, professionally, in regards to your day-to-day duties between doing a local broadcast for a team here in New York and then doing stuff for WWE, doing all that stuff, traveling around, doing stuff internationally?
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's we're doing the New York stuff. That was like daily, night in and night out, right? And when you say doing pre and post for the Yankees and the Giants and the Jets, I didn't bounce around from the teams. It was the stations I was at were carrying those games. Pix 11 was carrying the games and so on and so forth, and they would get the Giants and Jet games. But it's just it's a when you work. What I like to explain, it cracks me up with WWE. Even with the guys from Busted Open, Dave and Bully, I always goof on those guys because I'm like, you guys realize every day you get on the radio and you're breaking down something you might as well be breaking down every episode of Ray Donovan or Ozark, and saying what you liked and what you didn't like and why somebody didn't win and why this happened and why that happened. So working for WWE, it's like working for any other primetime show, right? If I played a newscaster or a sportscaster on, let's say I was on Ray Donovan, that's one of my favorite shows, right? And you saw me in the background playing a sportscaster, you're reading a script, you're doing this, you're doing that, you do however many takes you want to get it right. When you're doing New York or any market television night in and night out, whether you're the news anchor, which I did for a long time, or the sports anchor, that's all live. So everything you're doing live, really, you get one shot at, unless it's a pre-produced package, of course. So when you're standing out at Yankee Stadium, Mariano Rivera comes off the field after he just won a game and the playoffs against the Red Sox, and let's go to Scott standing by with Mariano Rivera. You get one shot to get that right. And it's live and anything can happen. And you got to be ready to do that. You got to have questions in your head. And you don't necessarily stick with those questions, but, you base it off of their answers. But when you're out there live doing it every night, it's a totally different animal than a WWE where, a lot of stuff's pre-produced, unless you're sitting there ringside calling the action. A lot of things are pre-produced. And it's, if you're interviewing somebody or you're doing, so you screw it up, all right, hey, let's do it again. So it's just, I always equate WWE to any primetime show that's on television. So, and that's why I always say to Bully and those guys, I'm like, I don't see any radio shows about, Real Housewives of New Jersey or like, right. So we treat it like it's a sport / entertainment. But when it really comes down to it, the results are the results of really one man's brain. You know what I mean? So it's almost, do you think Daniel Bryan should have done this or the Fiend should have done that? Or why did this happen? It happened because that's what they wanted to happen.
Right.
So yeah, it's totally two different animals. It's listen, when I sit here and do my shows, I could do it 100 times till I get it the way I want to get it. Live. But believe me, when you do stuff live and Vince is standing there with you and they're coming to you live, there's a little heartbeat. There's a little heartbeat going on there as well. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, it's a totally different animal. One is it on the entertainment side. One is, live sports, you screw up, and you keep on going. You call somebody by the wrong name, you keep on going, and you just, keep moving on. And it's a whole different being in studio, being out on the field, walking with Eli Manning and doing an interview that's live and you have 2 minutes. People interrupt you and, somebody's congratulating Eli on the way and you get interrupted. You just got to keep going. You know what I mean? You got to make it look like nothing ever phases you. And most of the time, if you do something wrong and you just if you sound like you're right, people will think you're right. You know what I mean? If you mispronounce a name, if you say it with authority and nobody knows the difference, you keep moving on. But it's two different animals, equally as exciting, and almost like drug-inducing high from when you're ready to go on. It's really you're like, oh man, you get a little butter. If you don't get butterflies from it, something's wrong. You know what I mean? If you gotta be a little nervous, or which keeps you on your toes. So it's definitely it's fun. People think it's I always say anybody can do this if you have enough practice, and there's a lot of people who really can't do it. So there's a lot of people who can't read a teleprompter and make it sound like they're just talking normally. That's really the only thing I can do. You know what I mean? I can't fix anything in my house. I'm worthless when it comes to that. There's nothing. If I was going to leave broadcasting, there's nothing I could do that really, I would excel at other than this. And I'm on shaky ground with that.
Yeah, it always looks like you're having fun, which I think is key. And for some reason, I always just remember with NBC when you were there. Every year, you go into the doing the pieces on the Giants Health and Fitness Expo at MetLife Stadium. You and Steve Weatherford are doing zip lines or something. But I just want to know, like, how is it like interviewing him? Because he seems like somebody who could fit in with WWE.
Oh, Weatherford, yeah. I mean, the guy's built like a monster. God, I would kill to be built like that just for one day, just to see what it feels like. But no, Steve was a great guy. Most of those guys are really, really good guys. And even at NBC, Chuck Scarborough and Sue Simmons, I watched as a kid. Next thing I know, I'm sitting next to them at the desk, and I'm like, holy shit. You got to pretend like it doesn't matter. But inside, I'm like, holy cow, man. This is Chuck and Sue I'm sitting next to right here. And you got to just, you act like you belong. And they were great. They, I always did my sports in a fun way for people who weren't really sports, into sports. I was just the guy who came on before the weather. And if you have two anchors who play off you and have fun with it, then it just, it's almost like in wrestling, when you tell people you got to sell. If somebody sells your sports sitting next to you, which Sue always did, it just makes it all that better. And people, the more you can make people remember you, you did something right. That's what I always say to young people also. If you can make people remember you, when you watch a newscast and somebody does a report on anything for a minute and a half, and they're just straight flat line speaking with no enthusiasm and no personality, they sign off. This is so-and-so, back to you guys in the studio. 10 seconds later, you won't even remember who did that story. But if they can make you laugh or chuckle or cry or whatever it is, you'll remember who that person was. So that's another thing I always like to tell, people starting out. Just listen, go out of your comfort zone, do something. If you're sending in an audition tape or a digital link, just remember the 100 people who send it in with you, they're all going to have the same stuff. It's all going to be the same, especially when it's sports. And it's just, if you can make it a little different, make yourself stand out, then even the people who are looking to hire you will remember who you are. And that's really the best advice I can give to anybody who's, who wants to be in broadcasting or set yourself apart from anybody else. You just have to be a hair different, just so they remember you out of all those, because they get a lot of them. What we used to be tapes. Now it's all links. They're getting 20 links and you just have to make yourself stand out. But, it's been a great ride for me, and I'm still just as hungry as I ever was, to be a big time broadcaster in this business. And I do auditions, and people send me auditions for little gigs here and there. I'll never turn down an opportunity. Even that doctor thing that we're goofing around about didn't pay a lot of money. They hired me from an audition, which I didn't think I would get. I did it on my phone, hey, this is Dr. So-and-so. The next thing you know, I'm in the studio but then you meet people who you're working with, and that leads to other things. So nothing's ever too small for me. Nothing's ever too big. And I just, I get, like I said, I was never a big drug guy. But being on TV, it's like a drug for me, and it just I forget about anything else that's going on.
Yeah, I think especially with your time with Pix 11, you were basically the Brooklyn Brawler. You were doing all the jobs. You're doing everything they ask you to do. And, now you're also doing stuff now with CBS and Yes as well. So basically these opportunities are coming to you. And I guess your advice for people would be, never think you're too big for anything. Is that correct?
No, absolutely. And you listen, I've done, and I'll still do things for free if I think it'll get me to the next level of, hey, Scott, can you do this? But we don't really have a lot of money. Yeah, sure. I'll do. How long is it going to take me to do it? I love doing it. We're quarantined anyway, so we all have nothing to do and nowhere to go. But you never know, man. And it's just, CBS HQ, like you said, the Yes Network, this Boxing 30 show that I do now. It's no different than me sitting here talking to you guys, except I'm just doing a different script, and wearing my suit, and then I switch over to my Brooklyn background like I'm in an apartment somewhere. But yeah, no, nothing. And you know what? One of the best days I've ever had at WWE also was WrestleMania 29. Was the first time we did. It was at MetLife Stadium. It was the first time we did a pre-show for WrestleMania.
Yep.
Like we do them now, where it was me, JR, Dusty Rhodes, and Kofi, up in MetLife Stadium. That was and that was the same. I had my own security detail, and people were mobbing us. I mean, and my wife saw that when she was there. And people are yelling your name. She's like, "Holy cow, man!" I even let her meet The Rock that night. She'll never forget it. But that was really, it's just that the WWE time has really just provided me with so many great moments and memories for myself, that, if it ended today, and like I said, I could another 20 years with these guys, I'll be very happy. It's been so much. I know the company takes a lot of heat for, different things and different issues and this and that and this and that, but they've listened through this pandemic. We never stopped shooting. And they were really, when all the other sports things went away, WWE never stopped shooting. And that's, I could actually say that was my saving grace during this pandemic. Or I probably would have lost my mind, without things to do, because I'm a workaholic when it comes to this stuff. You can't work me enough. But they've just been phenomenal to me, really. I can't say enough good things about them.
Yeah, I believe that we're gonna look back 10 years from now at the shows that the WWE ran at the Performance Center during the height of the pandemic back in the spring, and we're gonna look at those shows and we're gonna look at the work all the performers put in. And you talk about all the performers who are in the ring, the announcers, people backstage, people like you who are doing the hosting stuff. We're gonna look back at like camera crew and production stuff. All the way on from the production of the Performance Center now to the Thunderdome. Thunderdome went to the Amway Center in Orlando, and now it's at the Trop in St. Pete and near Tampa. I think what the WWE has done on the fly, especially with how you and your colleagues have been incorporated into that, I think it's a remarkable achievement. I think you deserve a lot of praise for it. I don't think you guys are necessarily going to get as much due as you guys deserve until years from now, when people look back on it and they say, wow, what they did was really, really difficult to pull off, because you need fans for pro wrestling. You need the fan interaction.
Weird,
you need all
right?
that stuff.
It was weird.
But what you guys were able to do so differently, I think it deserves a lot of credit. It deserves a lot of kudos.
Yeah, no, and listen, when you look at it now with the Thunderdome stuff, with all the people on the screens, it's so odd, because it looks like it's crazy fans, and the minute if you turn those things off, there's nobody in the building. So it's a very odd thing. But what they've done with that Thunderdome, and the digital fans being able to be there, I mean, you're used to it now, right? I mean, you're watching it, you're used to it. You got the crowd noise, you got the people. But when it first came on, from the Performance Center, it was real. We were like, oh boy, you need some noise in here. It was very odd, but they fought through it, and you come out on the other side, man.
Listen, SmackDown just did their highest number of the year on Christmas in the Thunderdome. So I think it's been a huge success. It's very different. It took a little while to get used to at first, but I think the overall experience and the theatricality and the spectacle of it, I think is very much there.
You know what
I think the shows have been greatly improved since it was implemented.
What I like about it is when the guys and girls are in the ring and they're even just, needling each other and talking to each other and trash talking each other, you hear it perfectly. You could hear the audio, which many times when the crowd is in there and it's set up differently, you don't get that. But I love when someone's, standing next to each other and they're just like, USOB and, you get all that stuff coming through loud and clear. But yeah, it's been amazing, man. And who knows what's going to happen in the new year with the virus and everything else. But listen, if they keep going the way they're going, ratings are 3 million plus, right, for SmackDown. And NXT is doing is great now. And listen, even they got competition, and that makes everybody do bigger and better things. And I just think, listen, as long as just keep putting out the good program. And again, it's not a baseball game, it's not a football game, it's theatrics. It's Ray Donovan and Ozark. Whatever happens this week doesn't mean anything next week and won't mean anything the week after. They can make it as crazy or as non-crazy or, insane as they want to make it. Things that Bully always talks about, things that make sense. Yeah, sometimes it can make sense. And if it does, listen, you got the Fiend who appears and disappears.
Right.
They just put him on fire.
Scott, I'm still waiting to find out who hit Elias with a car when we had the hacker on SmackDown. He didn't want to erase the footage, so
some things just disappear. It's just
we'll find out.
But
I watch Blacklist every night. I'm addicted to that show with James Spader, and nothing makes sense on that show, but it's entertainment, man. And it's like, wow, all right, good show, not such a great episode. That's the way it is, But
so, Scott, you grew up a big wrestling fan, obviously. So when you joined the company and you're getting access to all these, wrestlers or former wrestlers, was there anybody that ever starstruck you just because you grew up such a big fan of them?
You know what? I never got, and still I don't get starstruck. I always wanted to make it seem like I was supposed to be there hanging out with you. But with WWE, in my head, if I Hulk Hogan, or even guys like The Rock when I first meet, these larger than life guys. So many times when they did like those, the vintage throwback shows, with the legends and things like that, I'd be like, oh man, look at this. Ivan Putski, I'm meeting for the first time, and Stone Cold and all those guys. And they just, they turn out to be just regular, nice people, Tito Santana and, all the old guys I used to watch as a kid when they were on Spanish TV stations, Chief J Strongbow and all those guys, right? Baron Miguel Cicluna. I remember I once did a piece when I was at Channel 9 on a wrestling school for that UPN 9 thing, the SmackDown, and it was the Johnny Rodz Wrestling School, where Gleason's gym is in Brooklyn. And I just remember I was like, wow, Johnny effing Rodz, man. I used to watch. He was like the ultimate jobber, right? Johnny Rodz always was losing. You knew if Johnny Rodz was wrestling, he was losing the match. But what just such a nice guy. One of the best pieces I think I've ever done. Getting thrown around the ring and him doing stuff with me. But yeah, no, listen, even now, if I go backstage and you run into like Roman Reigns or, Rollins and those guys, it's just, they're just these larger than life personalities because they're all much bigger than me anyway. But they're like normal guys, hockey players are great guys, baseball players. When you see them, they're just, hey man, yeah, you want to can you take a picture with my daughter? Sure, man, bring them over. Stephanie McMahon, she's phenomenal. WrestleMania last year here in New York, had my kids. She's like, hey, come, let's take pictures. Everybody's just they're actors. And in real life, they're amazing, really nice people. It's really well. They give you the shirt off their back.
Scott, what do you remember from the Mike Adamle era?
Oh, Mike Adamle. I wasn't. There was a time where I missed a couple. I left WWE for a few years as far as being a fan and watching. Adamle was in that time where I didn't really watch, where they made him the general manager. And I remember he he messed up Jeff Hardy's name. What he
Jeff Harvey.
Jeff Harvey.
And he got lambasted for that. Oh my God.
When he walked out on ECW announcing, that was just like electric.
I remember Adamle. That
Adamle Originals. I mean, he came up with the 6-pack challenge. So
No, and I remember I screwed up once in WWE Superstars. I remember I called a move wrong. And not even that I called it wrong. It just came out of my Hurricane Rana. I called a Hurricana at the time. And I was just, I just called it wrong. Came out, and I happened to be with CM Punk, and he he's like, it's a Hurricane Rana, you moron. And this is and you could either sink in your chair, or you just hit him right back. I'm like, no, I meant to say Hurricane. I wanted to see if you were listening, dummy.
Well, that's the best part about having a great heel announcer next to you, is they could always cover your faults. And that's the best thing about pro wrestling. It's their jobs to be on your case as you're calling stuff.
Right.
That's great. Yeah.
Right. And he made, and him doing that stuff to me gave me the ability to be funnier and rip him back. And the audience, I still get, YouTube videos. So, hey, I loved when you were with Punk. Right. And, you said he was like your wife, complaining and this and that. And, he called me Steve and Joe. He never called me by my right name. And it was just a lot of fun, man. Just all those guys are really just nice, and you'd end up flying with a lot of them to different places. I remember walking into an airport one morning and there were the Bella twins sitting there going back to New York. I was like, oh, this will be a nice flight for me. I sat with John Cena once, just the two of us in an airport. And you never know, man. You never know what's coming around the corner. And getting to meet a lot of celebrities who come to the WWE events was great. So it's just, like I said, just the whole, I'm very lucky to have gotten the gig that I got. And I'm lucky that I also had all these other outlets of where I was able to work, doing the news, and none of them ever got in the way of each other.
It's great.
You know what I mean? The news I had a full-time job doing the news and sports. My WWE stuff never got in the way, and vice versa. But I never, even no matter what I was doing full-time, WWE, I always kind of put first, but don't tell anybody.
I mean, it's great that you're a programming director. I'd be like, oh, you got to go to Wichita to do Raw? No problem. We'll get a fill-in. So it's good that works out.
Can I have tonight off? I got to be in Wichita to do Monday Night Raw. He's like, and if your news director's a wrestling fan, forget it. You're in like
they're in. And, you mentioned the heel commentator. I think as soon as he decides to retire, The Miz is going to be the heel commentator for decades to come in WWE. Who's that? The Miz, Mike the Miz Mizanin.
Oh, Miz, yeah, no, Miz is great.
Yeah,
we had Miz and Maurice on our Suki and Scott show a couple weeks ago.
Miz and Mrs. promotion.
Miz and Mrs. and
great show.
Listen, man,
excellent show.
That's the thing, the guy's great on a microphone. He's got energy, he's got charisma, and that's I think in this day and age, that's more important than your actual wrestling skills. It's because, again, it's entertainment and it's a TV show, not a sporting event.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So Scott, one last WWE question for me here. Let's say Vince calls you up tomorrow. He says, I want you to be a personal ring announcer for any superstar of your choice. Who are you picking?
Any superstar of my choice?
Personal ring announcer, like Ricardo Rodriguez was for Alberto Del Rio.
Oh, okay. Not like Paul Heyman, not the personal advocate. Just like
you could be an advocate, manager,
you could be an advocate.
Personal ring announcer, whatever you want to call it.
By the way, I would be great. Like if I was the GM of Raw or SmackDown and I could turn into a total tool bag, I would be great at that. It's somebody today.
Yes.
Not just somebody today. Probably, I was gonna
We're gonna call you the consigliere Scott Stanford. How about that?
I was gonna say R-Truth, but he's I don't think he's main enough. Yeah, who would it be? You know, AJ would be fun. He's got the big guy almost. You know who probably would be fun because he would make me look like a midget would be what's his name? Lesnar.
You and Lesnar. I think it could work because Heyman's occupied with Reigns. So if we do you and Lesnar versus Reigns and Heyman,
Actually, even better would be Braun Strowman.
you and Braun, that'd be
You
good.
and Braun would be a good combo.
Yeah. Because I come up to. I mean, I'm 6'1". I probably come up to the guy's, shoulder. It would be fun, but yeah. I believe me. If Vince calls you for anything, you're there. You know what I mean? Whatever he calls you for, whenever anybody calls you, hey man, we need you to do this, you're there, man. It's great. It's great. And I just got my girl Elise Ashton into the business. Elise was doing stuff here in New York with Islanders and Fox 5, and we're looking for a new host with me for this week in WWE. So now she's on SmackDown every week, and it's great. She loves it, and it's just you just wait for your opportunity. I'm still waiting for mine. It's been 11 years. I'm just waiting.
We got to get you on the bump with my buddy Matt Camp. I figured that'd be the perfect show for you.
Do you know that I am they've had the janitor on the bump before they put me on that show. They have people nobody's heard of before I've been on that show.
It's not good.
I put it out on Twitter. Nobody listens. I've said it on the pre-shows. I said it to Sam Roberts a couple shows back. And I think I'm the only one left in the company who hasn't been on the show. And you know what? They're scared, dude. They're scared. Once I get on as a guest, then it's like, oh, we should make Scott the host.
Right. That's the problem. Definitely. I mean, even because even Carmella's assistant's been on the show.
Oh, dude, forget it. I saw hey, coming up tomorrow on the bump, Jim Smith, the gas station attendant from Monroe, Connecticut. And I'm like, holy cow, Jim Smith's getting on this show before I am. That's unbelievable.
I know. They really need to have you on. Scott, I wanted to go back in time a little bit because so Nick and I grew up obviously watching sports. You, more so than anybody, I think, have a personal connection to a lot of great people who have been on air through the years in New York.
Yeah.
People that I grew up watching. If I watched SmackDown, if I watched the news, guys like Russ Salzberg, right?
Yeah,
guys like Bruce Beck now. Len Berman is a legend. Obviously, you probably have some connections with him. How does it feel knowing that you've gotten to work with or be colleagues with or grow relationships with some of what I would assume would be the best sportscasters and throughout the country and people who really were instrumental in making the New York market the way they did?
Yeah, no, listen, when I first got into it, I worked with Russ at Channel 9 for several years, and it's a very small community. As big a market this is in New York, the broadcasting community is very small, and everybody knows each other. Everybody's friends with each other. Scott Clark was here when I came on. Len
Scott mentioned Scott Clark too.
Yeah, Len just left NBC. Bruce moved into Len's spot, and I moved into Bruce's spot at Channel 4. So I'm still very good friends with Bruce, Otis over at Channel 2, Otis Livingston.
Otis Livingston is great too.
Yeah, Steve
Love
Obermeyer,
his coverage of the decks.
The folks at Fox 5, Tina Servasio. I go way back with Tina. Tina and I used to do arena football together with the New Jersey Red Dogs. That's how far back we go with her. And all Duke Castiglione, who was here on Channel 5, and Russ, and then you had who was it on 11? It was what's his name? Oh boy, I can't remember. Yeah, Lolita Lopez was doing the sports, and then the other guy who was on with Len at all. Sal Marciano. Sorry, Sal. Sal Marciano. And all it was always the best time when you were covering big events, and everybody was there from every station. You know what I mean? Warner Wolf. I remember when I first started, Warner, like if the Yankees signed a big player and we all went to a press conference, it was always like, Warner gets the first question. Warner's that guy. And then eventually it turned out to where I was almost the guy getting the first question all the time. As the bigger guys were leaving, I was still here. And then we would be in a press conference and they, they'd go right to me or, in a post game show. But yeah, no, it's again, a lot of those guys I watched on TV as a kid. And next thing you know, you're just hanging out with them and they're telling you stories about, how great the business used to be. And those were the guys who were making all the big money. Those guys are making $1 million a year. And for doing the same thing I was doing. I'm like, boy, I wish I was doing this in the 80s. Because, they don't pay out that kind of salary anymore. Now, the broadcasting business is changing. TV is turning into a relic pretty much, regular broadcast television between all the streaming platforms and digital and so on and so forth. It's a whole different ball game. But back when we were kids, you had 4 channels in New York, right? 2, 4, 5, 7, and 11 and 9. And the people who were broadcasting on those channels made a lot of money, and you knew who they were, and you got your news from them. Right. By the time I came on doing sports, everybody already knew what the Mets did and what the Yankees did. That's why I always just made it fun and did fun pieces and goofed around and Bill Belichick, goofy stuff. And, but yeah, they, Warner Wolf, Sal Marciano, Len Berman, Scott Clark. I mean, every station you had like a major star doing your sportscast. And then as people started to say, you know what, why are we paying this guy $1 million and we could pay this guy $200,000 for the same thing? But yeah, no, it's a lot of legends, man. All those guys, a lot of them are moved on and living in, Florida. Scott Clark has a lake house in Illinois somewhere. But yeah, so a lot of great, and then you have the Chuck Scarboroughs who are still around, Chuck doing his thing, And it's amazing. Some people could stick to, Kitey Tong on Pix 11. God, Kitey, I was 10 when Kitey was doing, with Ernie Anastas on ABC. But I got to work with her, and it's just, it's kind of surreal. But after a while, it's just another day at work. You know what I mean? Hey, Kitey, what's going on? And they're all just regular people. What are we doing? We're not curing cancer. We're just, we're just on TV. People think it's a lot bigger deal than it is, but we're really just, what we do is pretty easy compared to most people's day at work.
Yeah, no, but I mean, all those names stuck with me throughout the years, and I used to watch them when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like I said, after every single event, you always the news kind of hovers around in the background noise. But then you go through the weather, and then you go through the sports, and then you go to your nightly, talk shows.
Yeah.
From when we were kids, Nick and I, it was like Leno and Letterman. Now, obviously, Fallon and Colbert and Kimmel, and that's just the way it is. And all these names become so prominent in our lives, and for Nick and I specifically, because we decided to pursue a career in sports, and because we have a passion to do this, all those names stuck with us, and obviously your name is sticking with us too, and for a really, really great reason. So. We really, really appreciate it. My last question is, when are you going to have Nick and I on for a Know Your Foe segment? Nick more so than I am, because he's the Giants fan of the two of us. I'm the Jets fan, so we kind of balance each other out. But when are you going to have him on for a Know Your Foe segment?
I tell you, that was always one of the most fun I've had, going into those locker rooms, doing Know Your Foe with those guys. Half of them look at you like you're crazy, and the other half will, go full boat with you. But I haven't done Know Your Foe. I think Russ still does it on the Channel 5, the Giants pregame stuff that he does with Tina. Yeah. I think he still does that.
He does.
Which I invented, by the way. Don't let him tell
you
different.
You are the inventor and the creator of that.
With Zach, I wanted to do Know Your Bro. And isn't it funny how?
Well, you could still do Know Your Bro. You have Riddle.
Yeah, with Riddle.
There you go.
Funny how they're bringing back all the bro stuff with Riddle.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's I unfortunately on the Suki and Scott show, Know Your Foe doesn't come in too often.
No.
You got to get Matt Cardona, Zach Ryder on the Suki and Scott show.
Yeah, right. That's funny. Unfortunately, our audience is all females 40 plus, so. I have to stick with magicians and singers and celebrities.
Dre Behar. Right up their alley.
Yeah, right. Joy Behars of the world. But yeah, it's fun, man. It's good.
That's great. Scott, you were really great. Thank you for doing this with us. We really, really appreciate it.
You got it, fellas.
We always give our guests the last words to our listeners. So if there's anything you would like to share or promote, the floor is all yours. Go right ahead. We really appreciate you doing this again. Hope you enjoyed the holidays. Have a happy new year. Stay safe, you and your family, throughout this whole thing. The floor is yours. Go right ahead.
You too, fellas. Listen, have a great new year. You know, be safe. Hopefully 2021 is a little better, but you could catch, Suki and Scott show is 7:30. We do it live Tuesday through Thursday on Facebook Live and like 20 other platforms, which I don't even know where we are, but I know we're on Facebook Live. Roku, Apple, all that other stuff, which I don't know anything there either. But Suki and Scott show 7:30 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's a lot of fun. Celebrities, entertainers, and it's a good hour of escapism from the usual crap you're getting every day. But and that's it, man. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
It was fun. Really appreciate it. So that's going to do it here for this episode. So for our special guest, future Slammy Award winner,
And maybe Emmy Award winner.
and maybe guest on the bump, Scott Stanford.
Are there parting gifts on this show? Do I get a gift certificate to a Spark Steakhouse or anything like that?
We give you a subscription to the WWE Network, which you probably already have. We appreciate it.
Thank you, fellas. It was fun.
So for Scott Stanford and Joe Calabrese, I am Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.